Hi guys, welcome to your library. I'm so glad you're here tonight. So I just have a few things I'm going to talk about as far as what we're doing in the future at the library before we introduce our guest. So we have a senior fitness class every Monday and Friday at 1 o'clock, and we use weights if you can do that. It's mainly chair fitness, but there's also some getting up and getting down and stuff like not on the ground. But it depends on your own, whatever your own ability is, will work with what you have. Right now I'm doing physical therapy with a patron because that's what she needs at that time. So we work with whatever you need to do, but there is a program, a Jerry Fit program that you can do with us if you want. That's Monday and Fridays at 1 o'clock p.m. This is a part of our summer reading program, the show that we have tonight, and it was brought to you by the Friends of the Spencer Public Library. That group gave us the funding for this. But as far as for summer reading program, it's still going on. We have a whole nother month. It ends July 31st. So it's for all ages. If you're interested in that, you can sign up for that. We have an app you can use, or you can sign up on paper. You just hand in your minutes that you've read and you get entered into prize drawings. So if you're already reading, it's a win-win, really. So we have some great prize drawings for our summer reading program. We'll do that one later. The book discussion we're doing in July is A Place for Us by Fatima Farine Mirza. And we'll be discussing that book July 7th at 6 o'clock p.m. And if you need the book, we do have some available for checkout that you can check out and read the book and then come to this discussion if you'd like.
What's it about?
This one is really a family study kind of book, but the parents were immigrated from India, and the children, there's 3 of them, are Indian American, and they live in California. And it's really about finding a place that they fit in within the family, within their religion. It's a Muslim religion, within the U.S., within California, just kind of finding their place. So that's what that's about. She does a really good job with character development. So July 14th at 6 o'clock p.m., we are having a bar and cookie swap. So all you need to do is bring in a plate of either baked cookies or a bar, and hopefully you can bring home a variety of treats. That is July 14th at 6 o'clock. We have another performer coming July 24th at 7 o'clock p.m. Laura Keyes is portraying Lucy Pentongill. Lucy Pentongill was a station operator on the Underground Railroad. So if you're interested in that, that should be a good one. And then to end our summer reading program on July 31st at 6 o'clock p.m., we are having an Iowa author. She does romance. Her book is Another Dance, but she's coming in and doing rom-com and fun. So what she's going to do is we're going to have food, we're going to have non-alcoholic drinks, we're going to have games to play and stuff like that. So she's coming in to do that. That is a sign up. So online on our calendar, sign up for that. That's July 31st at 6 o'clock p.m. Tonight, we have a special guest. We have Houdini, and he is going to be here telling you about his life and doing a lot of magic for you guys.
Good evening. Good evening. I, Harry Houdini, have chosen to appear before you strapped within the confines of this insane jacket. Now you well may ask why I've chosen to appear before you in this condition. It is because this trick, this single illusion, if you will, of all the tricks, of all the illusions in the nearly 40-year career of the great Houdini, illustrates that it is not through supernatural means, not through the employment of any trickery or secret device, but through sheer determination of will, stubbornness of body, and brute force, I will free myself from this jacket. Now, I tell you this because I want you to understand that what I do, anyone can do, if you're willing to work hard enough. And with the hope that by sharing with you my story of escape, you too may be inspired to escape from whatever bonds hold you down. We are alike in so many ways, truly. I grew up in Appleton, Wisconsin, We were poor immigrants from Hungary. My father, seeing clearly that there was no future for his family in Hungary, came to the United States in search of the American dream. Our story was not unique. In the 1880s, the United States was flooded with families from all over the world looking for a new life. Many fleeing persecution, looking for a way out, for freedom. Our transition, however, was not easy. My father was a brilliant, wonderful man. He traveled halfway around the world to give his family this gift of freedom. He brought with him everything he knew. Sadly, all he knew were the old ways, the ways of the past. He was a rabbi with a small following. His English was weak, so he contented himself to preach in German. His ways were old-fashioned, so he appealed to a very small few. But when you come to a new world, in search of a new life, you must bring with you new ways. I watched him struggle helplessly, much as I am struggling in this jacket. And however noble or valiant or persistent was his struggle, it was doomed to fail. And we all felt it, my mother, my brothers, my sister. Everyone lived as if the pages of their life had already been written, the outcome set in stone. Life is hard. You cannot win. The freedom that you seek is impossible. The first time I saw a straitjacket, it was on an inmate in an asylum. He was writhing on the floor, struggling, trying to free himself. And what I noticed immediately was that though he was struggling, expending a great deal of energy, he did not believe escape was possible. And so as a consequence, you see, he would not be free. The straitjacket, ladies and gentlemen, is effective because we believe it is effective. We believe the cards are stacked against us, and well, then they might as well be. But I wanted something different for myself, for my family. I could not conceive of a life of poverty and broken dreams. I mean, we're in America now. There must be a better way. And so I decided, perhaps unconsciously, that life moved forward. That who I was ever going to be, if by God I was ever going to be anyone, was a forward-moving, never-ending, never-resting evolution. And where that evolution took me, I didn't know, I didn't care. A way out was all I wanted. And not just for myself, but for my family, my brothers, my sister, for my mother. I loved my mother. But she was content to life as it was, to a life of poverty and broken dreams. How do I show them that there is another way? I must find a path, take the path, and then hope and pray that they will follow me. I remember spending one summer afternoon in the streets of downtown Appleton, Wisconsin, performing little magic tricks for anyone who would watch. I was just a kid. I was cute. I was funny. And so they put pennies in my hat. On my way home, I began to conceal the pennies in my clothes, in my hair, in my socks, between my fingers. I told my mother to shake me, that I was magic. I said, "Shake me, mother, I am magic." She shook. As she shook, the pennies began to fall. And she believed. When I escaped from the straitjacket, the audience erupts in a cathartic moment, you see. Not only am I free, no. They are free, and they cheer. I take off the jacket, resisting its confinement, and they jump to their feet. I throw it off, defying its authority, and they weep, by God, for the idea of their own freedom. Soon I became obsessed with magic. I read a biography of the great French conjurer, Robert Houdin. Houdin was the greatest magician the world has ever seen. Everything about his life inspired me, and I too wanted to be the greatest magician the world has ever seen. And so I studied hard. By the time I was a teenager, I was performing regularly. By the time I was 17, I was professional. A young friend once told me that if I added an I to the end of Houdin, it would mean to be like Houdin. So I added the I, and Houdini was born. I struck out on my own when I was 17, performing with another young magician. We called ourselves the Brothers Houdini. And we took jobs wherever we could, performing sometimes for just pennies a day. But my quest to be the best was all-consuming. I read every book I could find. I saw every show I could see. I befriended every magician I met. I discovered handcuffs and many possibilities around handcuff escapes. I became obsessed with locks. I took them apart. I learned how they worked and how I could master them. A year or so later, my brother Dash joins the act. Now we truly are the Brothers Houdini, and we are wildly successful. Truly. I mean, after paying our expenses, we each earned about $2 a week. But we were successful, you see, because we were doing what we loved to do. One Sunday afternoon, I happened into a small music hall. I saw an act, the Floral Sisters. Ugh. The act was not memorable, but the sisters were. I met a young lady, Wilhelmina Beatrice Rayner. I called her Bess for short. 3 weeks later, she was Mrs. Houdini. Now, Bess joins the act. I'm Houdini. Bess is my assistant. And our finale, Metamorphosis, is a fantastic trick. My arms are bound behind my back. I'm placed in a large canvas bag. The canvas bag is tied, taped, sealed with wax, and padlocked at the top. The bag is placed in a large trunk. The trunk is closed, locked, chained, and padlocked at the top. The trunk is then rolled in front of an open curtain. Bess, standing in front of the open curtain, announces to the audience that she will clap 3 times and advises them to pay close attention. 1, she claps. 2, she claps and closes the curtain. 3, she claps from behind the curtain. Instantly, I open the curtain, free of all constraint. But where is Bess? I open the trunk, open the bag, and there, locked inside the bag, which is locked inside the trunk, is Bess, her hands tied behind her back with the exact same ropes that had tied me just moments before. This was achieved in less than 3 seconds. Now that's magic. I printed advertisement cards that read, Metamorphosis, the illusion that created a sensation in Europe, Australia, and America. Now, the fact that we had never been to Europe, we'd never been to Australia, and the only bookings we had in America were in dime museums and freak shows did not stop me from passing this card out to anyone who could further our career. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Mr. Houdini, why, that's not the truth. Well, let me tell you something about the truth, my friend. For a magician, whether something is demonstrably true or not hardly matters, for ultimately what is true is what you believe is true. And therefore, what I want you to believe is true is what I'm going to tell you to believe. Let us play a little game, shall we? How about... Now, ladies and gentlemen, oftentimes I do what we call mind reading games. And it's a very dangerous business, because if you're doing 8 shows a week and you walk into the stage and you see a fellow like this and you try to read his mind and you realize, oh my goodness, there's so much in there. It's dark and storms and spiders and whatnot, and you don't necessarily want to travel into such an area. On the other hand, you see this mind here, it's open, butterflies and rainbows. And you think, we could read this mind like that. What's your name, sir?
Kevin.
Kevin, would you stand up, Kevin? Everybody say hello to Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
Kevin, come on up here. And I must tell you that your chiefs got what they deserve. I knew those would be fighting words. Now, Kevin, this is a regular deck of cards. I'm just going to ask you to look at them. Right? All the cards are there. Is that, I mean, pretty much you can tell, right? I mean, if it was just a deck full of 10 of hearts, then I would know what card he picked, and it would be cheating. And I wouldn't want to cheat when I'm doing card tricks. Okay, Kevin. So every card trick begins with the same 3 words. Do you know what those words are?
Pick a card.
Thank you. Thank you. A little help from the audience. Okay, Kevin, just pick a card. Take any card you like. I don't care which card it is. That's the one you want. Take it, look at it. Show it to the audience. Don't let me see it. Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to say some numbers to you, and I'm going to ask you not to react as best you can. Everyone has a tell. You know what players call a tell, right? When someone inadvertently they wink or they snicker or they cough or there's a slight perspiration that occurs on their brow. And everybody thinks they don't have such a thing, but everyone has one. And if you're a great poker player, or if you studied magic for 20 years, you can find these things. Kevin. Ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack. Ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Red, black, red, black. Diamonds, hearts, diamonds, hearts, diamonds, heart. I have to tell you, this trick works about 30% of the time. The red card. Kevin, a low number. Kevin, do you have the 6 of diamonds?
Hey.
There you go. Thank you very much. Give Kevin a big round of applause for taking the 6 of diamonds.
That was incredible.
No, I didn't have to. Okay, so where was I? I was talking about Bess. Bess and I made a fantastic team. I remember once we got off the train in St. Louis. Now, we didn't have money to pay the fare. Now, we had hoped to escape the station unharmed. Unfortunately, that was not in the cards. The station held our trunk, all the equipment that we needed for our act. And we needed $35 to redeem our trunk so we could go back to work. So what do? Well, we created a brand new act. We called ourselves Harry and Bess, America's greatest comedy duo. And we booked ourselves in a small music hall for a week at $35. Now, the act consisted mostly of songs and jokes we had picked up over the years, and some we stole right out of a comic magazine. But we were a hit. We were held over for a second week. When the management found out that we were actually a magic act, they held us over for a third week. So the moral of the story, young ones, is to never give up. All right, now we're going to try something else here. This is a wonderful trick called any card at any number. Any card at any number. Now, you might not know what any card at any number is, but you're going to figure that out very soon. Any card at any number. Young lady, what's your name?
Dorothy.
Dorothy. Dorothy. The witch is Dorothy?
Yeah.
No. Dorothy. I'm going to ask you to touch a card. Touch any card you like. And I can go for it. Just touch it. Just touch it. Don't steal it. Is that the one you want right there?
I guess.
It's up to you. That's the one. Just touch it. Now look at it.
Okay.
Can you see it? Can you all see the card? Can you see it? Can you see it way back there? Do you need glasses? This better. This better. Okay. Now, can you see it? Everybody can see this card. All right, now Dorothy. So what we're going to do here, you've already picked a card now. That's picking a card. That's any card. I didn't choose that card. You chose that card. You had no idea what that card is. Do you know what that card is now? Can you remember it? You know how many times I do this trick and then someone says, oh, I don't know, honey, was that my card? Now, that's any card. Now we're going to shuffle the cards as we have been doing. And Dorothy, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start counting some cards out on the table. And I'm going to ask you just to say stop whenever you feel like saying stop. And that will be any number. Now, I have no way of knowing what cards are where or how they are in the deck. Okay, Dorothy, I'm going to count off. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Stop.
8. 8 cards. Let's have the gentleman in the back right there with the glasses on. Raise your hand. That gentleman right there. What's your name?
Troy.
Troy. Okay, Troy, I'm going to ask you to continue. So I'm going to continue to count, and you're just going to say stop wherever you like. That was 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23,
Stop.
23, 23. Now, Dorothy picked the card. I didn't even see it. Dorothy picked a number along with Troy. Troy. That's close.
Yeah.
Crying out loud, it gets all upset. and so now we'll just cut the deck a couple of times. And what was our number? 20, right? Was that the number? That's the number we ended up on?
23.
20 what?
3.
23. Can you all see the front here? Can you all see this here? I'm going to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Then this would be the 23rd card. I hope I did this right. And Dorothy, what was your card?
Do you want me to tell you?
I do.
9 of clubs.
That trick is called any card at any number. It has made famous by the wonderful magician David Burglass, who blew people's minds with that cover. I know your minds aren't blown, but that's okay. Where was I? Oh, Bess. Bess and I bounced around for years before I finally realized that my greatest appeal lay in the escapes. Finally, my star is starting to rise, and all because of handcuffs and my obsession with locks. In Boston, I got out of thumb cuffs. In Omaha, I escaped from cuffs made during the Civil War, fitted with a spring so powerful that just securing them and putting them on by means of a screw key took 3 men in 7 minutes. In San Francisco, more than 400 patrolmen and officials from all over the county gathered to see me fastened with 4 sets of handcuffs, 2 sets of leg irons, another set of cuffs locking my wrists and my ankles together, bringing me into a crouching position. Trussed up like a turkey on Thanksgiving, I escaped in 7 minutes, dragging this collection of iron in an interlocking chain more than 11 feet behind me. Now, occasionally I would be tricked by cuffs, cuffs that we call fixed cuffs. Cuffs had been broken or manipulated in such a manner that they could never be opened once they were locked on your wrists, even if you had the key. And the press loved that. But the most amazing escape from a single pair of handcuffs came in London at the Hippodrome Theatre. I had received an invitation from the newspaper there, the London Daily Mirror, to try to escape from a single pair of cuffs made in Birmingham by a blacksmith named Nathaniel Hart. This blacksmith claimed to have spent 5 years making these cuffs. A week on the key alone, he swore he could not pick them, that they could not be picked at all. So in front of a very excited audience, I accepted the challenge. On the day of the event, more than 4,000 spectators crammed into the Hippodrome. I received an ovation fit for a king. I am now ready to be cuffed by the representative of the London Mirror, if he be present. The representative came on stage, we shook hands, and the cuffs were produced. They were placed on my wrists. A key was inserted, and it was turned several times to secure the bolt. I have now been handcuffed with cuffs that have taken a British mechanic 5 years to make, I said. I do not know, ladies and gentlemen, if I will escape. I can only assure you that, by God, I'm going to try. Oh, they loved that. They started screaming in anticipation. But what presented me behind the curtain were formidable indeed. These were inflexible cuffs. Unlike the shackles I have on now, there was no chain, no wrist swivel. The wrist holes were coupled onto these massive cylinders which housed the intricate locks. These were high security mechanisms used for guarding state secrets. The key was a metal tube with several slots cut into the end. And when this tube key was inserted into the lock, these slots all pushed a series of slides to a different depth. The key could only be turned when all the slides were depressed the proper distance, requiring end-weight pressure and several delicate rotations. When this type of lock was first introduced, it came with a very, very handsome reward to anyone who could pick the lock. The reward went unclaimed for 60 years, until the world's greatest lockpick, Alfred Hobbs, picked it. But it took Hobbs 44 hours, and the locks on my hands are far more sophisticated, with no fewer than 13 tumblers each. They are more complicated than some of the most complicated safes. And by God, I don't have 44 hours. After 20 minutes, I stepped out from behind the curtain. The crowd jumped to their feet screaming, "He's free! He's free!" Oh, but no, I was not free. I only wanted to get a better look at the locks in stronger light. I then stepped back behind the curtain. The orchestra played a light waltz. I did not return for another 13 minutes. When I stepped out, I was dripping from head to toe. It was a hot August day. I asked for a glass of water. "Why? Have you given up?" they asked. "Give up? Houdini will never give up, give in, or surrender as long as there is breath in my body." Oh, the crowd loved that. They started screaming with delight. I stepped back behind the curtain. I did not reappear for another 22 minutes. When I stepped out, still cuffed, a moan issued from the audience. And I felt sorry for them. Truly I did, because they had paid good money to see me. Well, they had paid good money to see the Great Houdini, rather. Escape from the mirror impossible cuffs, and here I was most impossibly attached to these impossible cuffs. I was stripping from head to toe. I looked as if I had already lost. I begged them, "Please take the cuffs off, only for a second, that I might remove this heavy, hot frock coat." But they were wary. You see, I had never seen them unlock these cuffs, and they feared that if I watched them unlock them, that they might show me some secret that I might need. Well, of course they would. And so they refused. And so in a moment of high drama, I grabbed the back of my coat and flipped it inside out over my body. Oh. I then searched my pockets for a penknife or something that I might use to tear these cuffs off, tear that jacket off my body, and the audience went wild. I then stepped back behind the curtain. The orchestra played a stirring march, softly at first, but it began to build in crescendo. Bum ba-da-dee-dum, 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 bum, 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 bum. Finally, I stepped out free. And in my hands, I was holding the single most complicated set of handcuffs the world has ever seen. Oh, the enthusiasm which followed is indescribable. Men stood on their chairs, women waved their handkerchiefs, strangers hugged one another. It was as if it were the end of a long, brutal war. Man had succeeded where machine had failed. And I left the theater weeping. So now I am the king of handcuffs. The king of handcuffs. But how far is that going to take me? An expose printed in the San Francisco Examiner and then later in the Los Angeles Record stated that there are only a few types of handcuffs in existence, and that all cuffs of the same model made by the same manufacturer could easily be opened with the same key. Now this was a direct attack on me. And though it was incredible publicity, I was not a man to take this lying down. So I fired back with an article of my own. That all cuffs of the same model made by the same manufacturer could be opened with the same key was no secret. But there must exist hundreds, perhaps thousands of varieties of cuffs. Some were named after their inventors, such as the tower cuffs, others for their shape or mode of construction, such as the plug-8s. And they range in size from 5-inch thumb cuffs to giant Oregon boots. And they differ in weight, size, complexity, design. They all have different locks. They all use different keys. So even if I had the thousands of keys required to open them, where would I keep them? And then how could I produce within seconds of being clapped with irons I'd never seen in my life the key required to open them? And then how would I produce it? So, to prove that I did not need keys at all, I chose to perform all my handcuff escapes nude. Now, think about that for a second while we play another game. Now, there's something called a group dynamic, and I don't know if you understand what this all is, and I'm sure that people of a psychological bent have one idea, but magicians, it's something totally different. There's one energy in the universe, and everyone is tapped into it, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And I'm going to ask you all to think of a number between 1 and 9, including 1 and 9. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up on a number. And I'm going to share with you what is possible with that. So I'm asking you all to think of a number. Think of a number between 1 and 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. It's important for me to go with the first thing that comes to mind. So I've just written down a 4-digit number. I'm going to ask the young lady right here, what's your name? Will you hold this? Okay, don't touch it. Don't show it to anybody. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask this. Would you come on? What's your name?
Sky.
Sky. Would you stand up, Sky? Everybody say hello, Sky.
Hello,
Sky, would you write down a 3-digit number on this piece of paper right there? Don't let anybody see it, because people like to look. You wrote down a 3-digit number. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sky. And gentleman in the blue shirt, what's your name, sir?
David.
David, would you stand up? I don't want this lovely lady right next to see what you're going to do. I'm going to ask you to write down a 3-digit number. Yes. Face that way. I don't want anybody to see. Look how the librarian is trying to cheat. Thank you very much, David. And now I need one more. This gentleman, this handsome gentleman right here. What's your name, sir?
Lamont.
Lamar?
Lamont.
Lamont. Lamont, would you stand up, please? And would you do me the honor of writing down a 3-digit number right underneath that second 3-digit number written by David? What? We're just having fun here. What are you sitting on your hands for? What's your problem? Come on. Okay, thank you, Lamont. Okay, now I need someone who looks as if they might have passed 3rd grade arithmetic. How good is his 3rd grade arithmetic? Probably very good. What is your name, young man?
Charlie.
What is it?
Charlie.
Charlie. Charlie, would you come up here, please? Everybody say hello to Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Now, Charlie, I have those three-digit numbers. And I'm going to ask you to do me the favor of simply adding them all together. I'm sure you can do that because you look very, very smart. And do it quietly. And don't worry that everybody's staring at you, Charlie. Don't get nervous that everybody's staring at you. Don't get nervous that you're going to mess up. Remember, if you have to carry the one, that's okay. You're allowed. Carry the one and add the others. You know how that is? You know? Dun, 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 dun. Your dad's very proud of you. Okay, Charlie. Now, I'm going to ask you to read that number out loud. And once again, this trick works 35% of the time. So you got to be, nice to me. Go ahead, Charlie. Read that number out.
2,191.
2,000. Can't possibly be 2,000. Charlie, look at it again. Start from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. And then this is what. That's the second. There you go. So now what is that number?
1,291.
That sounds closer to it. 1,291. Because if you add up three-digit numbers, you usually don't get into the twos or the threes or the 4,000s. You said 1,291? May I have this piece of paper? And Charlie, would you open this piece of paper and read to me what's on that piece of paper?
1,291.
The same number! Thank you, Charlie. Your ticket's in the mail. Thank you. That's amazing! It's amazing. I mean, I surprised myself. I got that. Oh, wait a minute. Where was I? Oh. So to prove that I did not need keys at all, I chose to do all my handcuff escapes nude. In San Francisco, I was stripped and searched by 3 detectives and the police surgeon. They searched me from head to toe. They certified that it would be impossible for me to conceal a key, a pick, a wire, a spring, or any other secret device. As an added precaution, taped my mouth shut. And then they shackled me with 4 sets of handcuffs, 3 sets of leg irons, 2 sets of cuffs, locking my wrists and my ankles together, and they locked me in a closet. 5 minutes later, I joined them in their office for coffee. Still naked as a jaybird. I made these jail cell escapes, these police station escapes, a regular part of my traveling routine. Whenever I would go into a new town, I always made a point to stop at the local police station and escape from their finest cuts. I advertised that I was the only conjurer in the world who could escape from all handcuffs, leg shackles, insane belts, and straitjackets after being stripped, searched from head to toe, proving he carries no keys, picks, wires, springs, or any other secret device. And that was my business card. You see, ladies and gentlemen, what a magician does has to appear impossible. And metamorphosis made me think about locks. Locks made me think about handcuffs. Handcuffs made me think about the police. And the police, well, I wasn't through with the police. In Chicago, I was stripped and searched by 4 detectives and 3 patrolmen. I was then led to a jail cell. And this was a normal jail cell with 2 locks. One was a typical jail cell lock, but there was a hinged iron tongue over the keyhole that extended out past the frame of the cell, which was padlocked shut. So in order to escape, I would have to unlock this padlock, which was out of my reach, before I could even gain access to the keyhole. I escaped in 3 minutes. The most amazing escape from a jail cell, though, came in Washington, D.C. I had received an invitation from the warden of the United States jail to try to escape from the most secure cell in all of America. This cell was so secure it had its own name. It was called the Grand Finale. So I accepted the challenge. The next day I arrive at this cathedral-like prison on the Potomac River. I meet the warden and several officials in the warden's office. They lead me down to the prisoner's row, which is the lower south wing of the building, which consisted of 17 cells. Current residents included no fewer than 7 convicted murderers. We stopped at cell number 2, which was famous for having housed Charles Gutial. And those of you who are history buffs might remember that Charles Gutial was the man who had assassinated President James Garfield in 1881, an Iowa native. Well, Gutial had long since been executed for his crime. Current resident of this cell There was a fellow named Walter Hamilton. Hamilton had been convicted of smothering his wife with a pillow. Charming, charming fellow. So I was stripped to the skin, searched, and thrown in a cell with Hamilton. Now the warden and several officials left me and my fellow inmates to our own devices and went up to the warden's office. And they had good reason to feel confident. This jail cell was basically a brick room with heavily barred doors sunk deep within the walls of this brick wall. And when the lock of this door, and this door was closed, the lock extended out through this little tunnel where it made a turn, went all the way down the hall where it slipped over a staple, fastened the pin, and locked the door. The door could only be opened if you could unlock that door, which was 35 feet out of my reach. I escaped in 2 minutes. My clothes, however, were locked in an adjoining cell that I would have to unlock if I wanted to leave this prison clothed. So while I'm unlocking a second cell, an idea occurs to me, a deliciously deceitful idea. An idea that would elevate this escape from the mere record books to legendary, even mythic status. While still naked, I unlocked each prisoner's cell, moved each prisoner into a different cell, locked them all back up, got dressed, and went up and saw the warden. Now, you ask, why would you do that naked, Mr. Houdini? Well, these were dangerous men. And I needed the advantage. And a naked man makes people very nervous. Newspapers went wild with stories of these jail cell escapes. They used words like amazing, incredible, supernatural, unbelievable, impossible. A butcher in Omaha, Nebraska ran a newspaper ad that featured a drawing of shackles flying off the Great Houdini above the price of pork loin and round steak. The caption read, "Houdini can escape from his shackles, but you cannot escape from our prices." But with this greater notoriety also comes those who challenge you. You know, like the gunslingers of the Old West, every turn presented someone who feels they must put you to the test. Once in Detroit, I was locked in a pay phone booth by a practical joking traveling salesman who saw me walk in to make a phone call and thought it would be a great opportunity to have some fun. Well, he did. Next day, newspaper headlines. Houdini locked in phone booth but cannot escape. And sometimes I foil myself. I once missed a train because I could not unlock my own suitcase to get the ticket out before the train left the station. You see, ladies and gentlemen, a magician is only as good as his latest illusion. If you want them to keep coming, you've got to give them something new. And so I began to do my straitjacket escapes suspended over a town hall by a crane or hanging off the end of a building, usually the newspaper building for the free publicity. 200 feet in the air. Now, the fact that the straitjacket escape is easier to execute upside down owing to the assistance of gravity doesn't matter. Watching someone struggle 200 feet over your head, that was exciting, and that's what they came to see. So I began to do these suspended straitjackets whenever I was in a new town. Once, after escaping from the jacket, the crane malfunctioned, and I hung upside down by my ankles a full 22 minutes before a window washer, God bless him, climbed out of the window and threw me a towel, of all things, and pulled me into safety. But I was determined to make the name Houdini stand the test of time as the greatest magician the world has ever seen. I don't remember where the idea came to me, but I began to practice holding my breath underwater, oftentimes under ice water. I reasoned that if I could hold my breath long enough, I might be able to fasten some type of underwater escape. I got to where I could hold my breath a full 3 minutes underwater while being incredibly physically active. And I would do escapes in the river. I would get shackled and climb to the highest point of a bridge and dive into the river. Now, I had my method of escape, but it was still very, very dangerous. I could have hit myself on my head on a rock. I could have killed myself at any time. I also devised a type of underwater trunk escape where I would be shackled and placed inside a trunk that would be locked and chained and hoisted into the river. One time, it was in Pittsburgh, I believe. It was winter, and the ice on the river was in places 7 inches thick. Now, the cold had never really held any great horrors for me, so I had a large hole cut in the ice that we would dump the trunk in, and then later I would climb out of. So I was shackled, I was placed in the trunk was hoisted and dumped into the river. Now, the restraints against my body and those against the trunk offered no more resistance than typically they do. But what I found was that once I had freed myself, now I had drifted downstream with the current. And now I was trapped underwater under 7 inches of ice. I immediately recognized the danger of my situation because, unlike many people, I could think very clearly under duress, even trapped underwater under 7 inches of ice. So I began calmly at first to look for the hole. I figured there should be some sunlight that would be coming through the ice that would show me the way, but I saw no light. And now I've been underwater longer than I've ever been underwater. I've been holding my breath longer than I've ever held my breath, and I've got to get out of here. I swam to the surface. I started banging on the ice. Somebody see me. But there was no one there. I was this close to drowning when it occurs to me that if I bring my mouth close to the surface of the ice, I may catch a breath when the water and the ice separate in the waves. And so with my mouth kissing the ice, my hands clawing, my feet kicking, I began to search for the hole, looking, clawing, grabbing a breath wherever I could. It took me 27 minutes to find that hole. I was pulled to safety. The crowd thought I had died, and I nearly did. But by God, the city streets would be filled with 5,000, 10,000 people who came to see the Great Houdini hanging upside down or diving into the river. I mean, they would swarm the streets in the afternoon, and by God, they would pack the theater at night. At some time, it became obvious even to me that these death-defying illusions were exactly that, a defiance of my own mortality. I mean, I'm now over 50 years old, and who wants to believe they can't do what they used to be able to do? All of these crazy stunts, the Chinese water torture, the milk can escape, the buried alive stunt. A buried alive stunt. For centuries, people were horrified at the possibility of being buried alive. Edgar Allan Poe wrote horror stories about being buried alive. At some point, it became common sense for people of means to be buried with a rope attached to their hands that was attached to a bell over their grave. Friends and family would sit vigil day and night, staring at the bell in case it rang. Sometimes it did. Where do you think the phrase, "saved by the bell," came from? I reasoned that if I could be buried alive and still survive, that would resonate with the audience on a deep, profound, and truly frightening level. Now, the first time I experimented with the buried alive stunt, I was shackled and buried only about 2 feet underground. And I undid the shackles, I dug myself out. It was really quite simple. I then tried it at a depth of 3 feet. But when I tried it at a depth of 6 feet, I thought I knew what I was getting into, but what I had not anticipated was the incredible pressure of the earth against my body. The weight was incredible. And it made any movement impossible, any breathing impossible. Now you have to understand, if the earth had not been tamped down, there are small pockets of air that can be had, but you have to be able to move to find them, and the pressure against my body made any movement impossible. I tried to take a breath, but I only took in a mouth of dirt. And now I thought, this is it. I'm going to die, and I'm already buried. And so then I did what I do when I'm underwater. I put every thought out of my mind except that which I needed to survive. I reassured myself that I must have at least 2 minutes of oxygen left in my lungs, and I concentrated on one thing only, to move my hands. It's a half an inch, then an inch. I finally managed to get my hands in front of my mouth where I created a small pocket of air that I greedily breathed in. I then began to move my body to displace as much dirt as possible before I could begin to claw myself out, dig myself out, drag myself out of that hole. It took me 33 minutes to drag myself out of that hole. That was easily the most frightening experience of my entire life. But I didn't give up on this. I continued to work on it. All of these crazy stunts, the Chinese water torture, the milk can escape, the buried alive stunt, the disappearing elephant, the walking through the brick wall. All of these were the climax to my regular stage, my 3-act stage show. I was still a magician at heart. I still did card tricks and coin tricks and prediction routines. Here's a trick that my mother loved. She thought this was the greatest trick. And it starts like this. It starts with a length of thread. And you take this length of thread and you break a piece off. And then you break another piece off. And you break another piece off. And finally, you break one more piece off. And you take these smaller pieces and you roll them up into a ball. Little al dente, but not bad. Now I know you're saying, Mr. Houdini, why would you swallow a length of thread? Well, it's elementary, my dear. You swallow a length of thread so that you have a way of getting the needles out. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is a needle made of the finest surgical steel imported from Sheffield, England. And if you look very closely, madam, you know it's my needle because you can see my initials are engraved in it. It's a joke. Anyway, take this needle. Now, I admonish any children not to try this at home under any circumstances. It took me years to learn how to do this. And if you do it wrong, well, then you're dead. So don't do it. Take this needle and I place it on my tongue thus. And then take a second needle. And once again, I admonish any children to never try this at all. I then proceed to swallow 15 or 20 needles. In this case, I'm going to swallow 19 additional needles. Can you see those needles? It's 19 needles. Can you see that? Kevin, can you see those needles right there? Ha! So I take these 19 needles. And I place them on my tongue thus. My mother loved that trick. She thought it was the most fun trick. She thought it was much safer than diving into the river, which I have to tell you, it's much more dangerous than diving into the river. But before I kick you all out, I think it'd be a great idea to do one more card trick. You like card tricks, don't you? Mm-hmm. Do you like card tricks? Yeah. Okay, we're going to try one more. Now, young lady in the peach, is that peach? Would you say that's peach?
Yes.
That's peach. And what is your name, young lady?
Debbie.
Debbie. Now this is a normal deck of cards, right, Debbie?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so Debbie, I'm going to riffle through these cards. When I riffle, I'm just going to do that. And as I do this, you're just going to say stop anywhere you like. If you say stop here, then that's your card. If you say stop here, that's your card. Perfectly free choice. I don't care which card you pick. We've got a young lady looking right over your shoulder, so she's going to be watching you. Now all you have to do is say stop, but say it before I get to the bottom of the deck, okay? And go.
Stop.
Okay, before I get to the bottom of the deck. Okay, I'll go slow.
So stop.
Already? Okay, take the card. That was a perfectly free choice. I cannot see that card. Show everyone that card. Now, don't let me see it. Go ahead and place the card on the top of the deck. I want you guys to see that I'm now just going to move the cards all the way through. I'm going to shuffle them up. So I hope it's not either of these two cards. Oh, we won't help. I won't help. I'm going to shuffle them. Okay, now. Now, young lady, I'm just going to ask you to think about that card. Actually, all of you can think of that card. Just see it in your mind. And what I'm going to do is simple. Simple. I'm simply going to cut right into your deck. And you know how many combinations of a shuffled deck of cards there are? It's a fractal. Does anybody know what a fractal is?
No.
You know what a fractal is?
No.
Fractal is when you multiply the highest number by the second highest number by the third highest number by the fourth. So you take 52 cards, because there's 52 combinations for the first position, and you multiply that by 52. Then you multiply that, 52 by 51 by 50 by 49 by 48 by 40. You end up with 68 zeros after it, which would be a 1 with tens of thousands of zeros after it. More combinations to a shuffled deck than you could fit grains of salt in this building. Unbelievable. All right here. So me just cutting to your card is impossible. Think of the card. 7 of hearts. It was the 7 of hearts. Was it? What? No, what? What?
3.
It was the what?
Hearts.
The 3 of hearts. Why did you tell me? You told me it was this. Oh. Well, sometimes I can't even find the 3 of hearts. I don't know. Sometimes magic is a little tricky. And we can't help it. But before you leave, or before I kick you out, there's one more thing I want to share with you. And I want you to remember it. And I want you to remember it. And I want you to remember it. And I want you to tell all the little ones to remember this. And you remember it. And you and you and you. And for those of you who are a little older, remember it too, because you're going to go, oh yeah, I think that's true. And this is the key to life. One of the many. But it's a good one. And it's how I'm able to do magic. It's not the straps on the jacket. It's not the chains on the shackles. It's not the locks on the doors. They keep all of our beautiful magic hidden deep down inside of us. It doesn't let it come out. Whatever those straps might mean, whatever those locks may be, whatever those chains are that hold us back, it's our belief in the straps and the chains and the locks. More than that, it's our fear of whatever those represent in our life. But those are just thoughts in your mind. Those are just ideas that you have. And you can have new ideas. You can have thoughts of unbuckled straps, of broken chains, of unlocked doors. So that all that beautiful magic that you have, that lives deep down inside of you, you can let that all out for the world to see. You can let it all out. You can let it all out. Oh. Oh.
I was in his teeth and he like, I remember last night. Honey girl.
3 of hearts.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. I will be here for a few more minutes. Happy to answer any thoughts, questions, ideas that you might have about Harry Houdini, about his life, about his work, or about the life of an itinerant actor who traveled the country doing something as insane as what you sat witness to just now. Yes, sir.
Could you tell us what years you're talking about when you escaped in England and when you were searching to get out of the ice, that type of thing?
The years?
Yeah, what time frame was it?
Early 1900s. Early. He died in 26. So a lot of these, he was well, the buried alive stunt he was doing towards the end of his career. So that would have been in the 1920s.
Okay.
He was already well into his 50s. And that experience really changed him. It really had a huge impact. I mean, he was literally buried underground. And the people that did it, see, the problem was they didn't just do a shovelful at a time. They dumped a truck of dirt on it. And so, I don't know, a 6-foot, a graveside, how much that dirt weighs, probably a couple thousand pounds, I don't know, against him. And he wasn't anticipating that at all. I think he thought most of the dirt would be weighing on itself, and he didn't think it was all going to be on him. Anyway, it was. And so the struggle to get out of that scared him to death, of course. He says that really had an effect on his overall health. He felt that it was one of those seminal moments in your life where you're really not the same afterwards. And that was that. And that was pretty late in his career. So I'm going to guess somewhere around 1923, 24, died in 26. So there was that. He started doing the suspended straitjacket escapes probably in the 1890s, when he was in his 30s and 40s. He started doing that as a younger man. And he died, he was only 53, I think.
What was the cause of death?
He had a ruptured appendix.
Oh.
And there is the story that someone punched him in the abdomen, and that is true, and it was the day before he went to the hospital. But he most likely, his appendix was in bad shape already. Now, here's an interesting fact that's hard to, at this point, is very, very hard to prove. This was a year before penicillin was discovered. So he dies in 26, penicillin is discovered in 27, and who knows how long it took before it got on the market, I don't know. So he didn't have the benefit of that antibiotic. And if your appendix, obviously your appendix bursts, you go septic, and typically you're dead within 36 hours. And he lived for 10 days. And it's basically the only case of someone living this long. So a lot of people are saying, well, he could not possibly have had ruptured appendix. Although, when he got to the hospital, they operated on him, they removed his appendix. And they said it had ruptured. But he survives for 10 days. On the 10th day, the day before he dies, and he's starting to rally. I mean, he was sick. On the 10th day, he's rallying, and a doctor comes into the office. And comes into the hospital, and nobody at the hospital knows this stuff. And he goes into Houdini's room. And a nurse or somebody confronts him saying, I'm sorry, who you are? He says, oh, I'm Dr. So-and-so from the such and such hospital. And they go, oh, okay. And then he disappears. Well, no one ever saw him again. No one ever knew who he was. Later that day, Houdini's dead. So, if you want to put 2 and 2 together, or it could be just total speculation. He had spent a lot of time debunking spiritualists and mediums. He had worked as a medium, not as a medium, but, well, he and his wife had sort of done a medium kind of routine when they were very young. And they would go to the local cemetery the night before the show, and they would learn all about the families in town. And the next day, when they showed up, they would pick out that family, and they would know something about her grandfather, they'd know something about their lost relatives. They would have this information, and they would use it to their advantage, like you see on television, you know. And he quit doing that because it was very lucrative, but it was also really low, you know. And he thought, I'm really making money on people's sorrow and pain. So 20 years later, when he's watching the spiritual movement just bloom, he starts to get incensed. He's like, these people are taking money from people, and they're doing the same stupid tricks we did. The levitating table, the disembodied voices, the spewing of ectoplasm, all this stuff. So he would dress up as an old man, and there's one photo of him at a seance dressed up as this old man. And he would go to these seances, and he would sit through them, and then at the point where they had made the table levitate, or they made a ghost appear or something, he would stand up, tear off his costume, and then he would expose them and show exactly how, thank you so much for coming, thanks for the help, young man. And he would show exactly how the deceit was done, because he knew how all these tricks were done. And he put literally hundreds and hundreds of spiritualists, of psychics out of business. He even went in front of Senate and testified, saying that, you know, everything they're doing is a big lie. I'm a magician, and everything that I do is a trick. You know, he was very open about that. It's just a trick, you know. He said, but they're telling you it's real, and that bothered him. And so he had lots of enemies. So and it was a very big business. It was one of the biggest businesses in the country at the time. And so it's possible that they might have gotten together and hired somebody to take him out. Because it's really pretty much impossible for somebody to survive 10 days after your appendix is burst. So we don't know. It's interesting. Any other thoughts, questions, ideas you'd like to share? Yes?
How long have you been doing this and where do you come from?
I've been doing this for years now, and I have 10 one-man shows.
Oh,
I started with Edgar Allan Poe, different wig. George Burns. I'm going to be doing George Burns on Monday evening in Thompson, Iowa. And tomorrow in Emmitsburg, I'm going to do Audie Murphy, the war hero. That will be at 6:30 p.m. So I do, it's just, I'm an actor, I live in Los Angeles, I just do, you know, whatever someone will pay me to do, and I created this one-man show business, sort of as to give myself something to do when I'm not doing what I want to do, but I love doing this as much. So it's, you know, it's just, yeah, it's a little side hustle, but I've been doing it a long time, since 2021, since 2001, yeah, 20 years, 20-something years. Well, thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. You have yourself a wonderful